68.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mikestand. We're going to, of course, give people a chance to get in here. So I hope everybody's we're at the middle of the week here, Hump Day. So I hope everybody's been having a good week thus far. Yeah. Alrighty then. So, anyways, ah, with that, let's see now. Like I said, we're just waiting to give people a chance to drop by. Hope everybody's having a good week thus far. Let's see. Walking in a town in a faceless crowd, I need to feel the touch of a friend. In the countryside, I wander far and wide. The isolation gets me again. I don't know where to go when I feel like crying. Oh my. Time to open myself. Do something new. I want to stop and grow up a bit. Then suddenly my intuition and my wisdom grow. And then I know that most of all and compassionately, strangers wherever they go. Thank you for waking me up. Anyways, Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm strong to the finish when I eat my spinach. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. Let's see, what else? Little Audrey says, make a haste for rainy day. Well, we have a third person. Hello, third person. I hope you're having a good week thus far. We're just, as I said, just waiting for some people to come on. Anyways, if you can, of course, help out by liking, sharing the stream, seeing if we can get some more friendly people in here. Also, um, of course, um, if anything we talk about tonight catches your attention, um, feel free to go ahead and comment or ask questions. I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Anyways, we're coming up on 4 minutes now, so I might as well, with another person here, might as well um, go ahead and talk about what's on tap for tonight. So we're going to go over 5 articles from Bounding into Comics. Among those include a couple comic articles, a interview with a mangaka, some wrestling, some main wrestling news. So let's see. One of the things we're going to talk about is director Peyton Reed reveals King the Conqueror will get a massive power up in the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania compared to his comic iteration. We'll talk about that a little bit. Let's see what else. Amazon cuts nearly 75% of Comixology staff as part of sweeping company layoffs. I'll give you one other thing we're talking about. Of course, this has been kind of going around the last few days. There's some issues that have come up with Rick and Morty creator. I believe the guy's name is I guess Justin or Joseph. I can't even think of the guy's name now, but anyway, the guy who basically is the creator as well as basically just about all the voices on Rick and Morty. Apparently, even though he's only been charged, he hasn't actually been convicted of anything, mind you, but he's been charged with some pretty serious stuff. They just Warner Brothers has decided to part ways with him. We got an interview with Tokyo Underworld mangaka Kenji Sakaki that we'll be looking at, as well as um, some issues going on with Warner Media in regards to professional wrestler Jay Briscoe. So that's what we have on tap for you guys tonight. Um, some comic news, some manga news, a little bit of everything as we always do. Some animation news. So with that, and we're at 6 minutes now, so might as well get started. So here we go. And as I said, if you can, of course, help out by liking and sharing the stream, that'd be very helpful. Seeing if we can get some more people here. Anyways, let's get going with the articles here. As soon as I pull the first one up here, and of course, at the end of the night, of course, our nightly look at this day in each history, as well as the wrestling roundup. So, which will have. So, anyways, let's get to this first article here. Director Peyton Reed reveals King the Conqueror will get a massive power up in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania compared to his comic iteration. Article by John F. Trent published yesterday. So, with that, let's go ahead and go through this. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania director Peyton Reed recently revealed just how powerful Jonathan Majors' race-swapped King the Conqueror is. In an advance for the film, Marvel Studios describes King the Conqueror as, quote, quite possibly the biggest threat to the MCU ever encountered, with multiple versions of the villain, each more terrifying than the last, unquote. Let's see. All right. So as we continue on here, let's see. All right. So let's see. Oh yeah. Okay. It goes on to reveal, quote, time it seems is King's secret weapon, and he intends to use his unique understanding of it to conquer worlds far beyond the quantum realm, unquote. Director Peyton Reed then pumped up King, saying, quote, while retaining the intimacy of the family story, we decided we wanted to go really big. And to do that, we needed a world-class villain in a movie like this, unquote. Quote, as a kid who grew up reading all the comics, always loved King the Conqueror. He was one of the great antagonists in the comics, unquote. He added. And here's something from Paul Rudd as Scott Lang, Ant-Man, and Jonathan Majors as King the Conqueror. Okay. So that's what they're looking like in the movie there. Reed would go on to detail part of King's power set that will be showcased in the film. Quote, King is able to experience past, present, and future at the same time, unquote. He then explained what that looks like. Quote, what does that look like? He conserves his energy. They're not a wasted gesture or word. And if King says something, he means it, unquote. If indeed what Reed claims is true, this is a drastic change from the comic book origins of the character. King the Conqueror first appeared in Avengers number 8 back in 1964. So that would be approximately 59 years ago. In that debut issue, written by Stan Lee, King details that he, quote, was born in the year 3000, where, in brackets, he mastered time travel, unquote. He went on to journey to the far past and called himself Pharaoh Ramatut. He then eventually made it to the current timeline and encountered Doctor Doom. In a way, if I had to draw a comparison here based on how they're describing, because I've, the only experience I've ever had or heard of King the Conqueror is possibly from the X-Men series of the 90s. I think they said that the guy who was the janitor on that little walkway that Bishop was on, the guy he turned into after they defeated Apocalypse in the Beyond Good and Evil arc was King the Conqueror. So that's the only time but I get the impression here that King is Marvel's answer to Vandal Savage in DC. That's what I'm thinking. That maybe, by means of a different nature, of course, but I get the impression that King is to Marvel what Vandal Savage is to DC, basically. As somebody who's kind of immortal, or kind of somebody who can transcend time and, is out to conquer the world in any and all time periods, kind of thing. So that's the impression I get based on the description they just gave here. Anyways, getting ready to move on to the next part of the story here. Next, he traveled to the year 4000, where he discovered a world ravaged in war, but using extremely advanced weaponry. King set out to bring the warlords of the era under his wing, a task which he eventually accomplished. But he was not satisfied with leading this dying world. Using the advanced technology, he travels back to the current timeline and sets out to conquer it. So there's King right there with Ant-Man and Iron Man in the and I guess this is from Avengers number 8. Look at that art right there. Look at that. That's 60s art right there. Kind of funny because I remember that kind of stuff from watching Marvel Superheroes, the 1966 show. From Grant Way Lawrence. But anyways, continuing on with the article here. King's technological marvels included the ability to send Mjolnir into subspace until it no longer poses a threat to him. He also possesses an anti-gravity weapon that is able to immobilize nearly all of the Avengers at once. He also deploys an antimatter screen that is quote, capable of instantly disintegrating any entity matter it may touch, unquote. His ship also had what Iron Man called an, quote unquote, attractor ray that allowed King to separate the Avengers and imprison them, quote, in the grip of a continual paralysis beam. Thor was even forced to revert back to his mortal form of Dr. Don Blake after King's attack. Of course, because if he was able to get Mjolnir away from Thor, as I remember from the '60s card. And I don't know how things have changed since, but initially Thor, if he did not have hold of his hammer for a certain amount of time, then he would revert back to if basically he was not in possession of his hammer for a certain amount of time, he would revert back to his mortal form of or the secret identity of Dr. Don Blake. If I recall. So. Mm-hmm. Continuing on here, and also, if anything here again, grabs your attention, feel free to comment or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability, and if you can, again, if you haven't already, like and share the stream so we can see if we can get some more friendly people here who may want to learn some of this stuff. So, anyways. While Kang doesn't typically have any kind of supernatural powers, in one storyline he did obtain the power of the celestial executioner and claimed he had ascended to godhood and obtained omnipotence. However, he failed to factor in that both Havoc and Sunfire were also able to absorb some of the celestial's power, and the two combined to defeat him. Interesting. What do you make of Kang's massive power up and this new ability to experience the past, present, and future at the same time? Well, might be some, might make for some very interesting, situations, I guess. Now we're ready to move on to our next article here, which is another comics article. All right. That one went a little quick. Huh. All right, so let's see what's on here. Amazon nearly cut 75% of Comixology staff as part of sweeping company layoffs. Now, I know that I did remember hearing about this. Yeah, I think Yellow Flash actually reported on it a few days ago. So, but article here by Spencer McCooley published yesterday. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. According to a now former employee, Comixology has reportedly lost, quote unquote, the majority of its workforce as a result of parent company Amazon's latest round of sweeping layoffs. As part of their recently announced desire to eliminate 18,000 jobs across its retail and human resources departments, the largest such downsizing measure in the company's history, Amazon began breaking the bad news to affected employees on January 18th, which was a week ago. Hmm. Well, the exit out of COVID this past year was challenging, with labor shortages, supply chain difficulties, inflation, and productivity overhang from growing out fulfillment and transportation networks so substantially during the pandemic, all of which increase our cost to serve. unquote, explained Amazon retail CEO Doug Harrington in a company-wide memo announcing the staffing cuts as shared by Amazon watchdog Jason Del Rey. Let's see, we move this up a bit. Quote, as we head into 2023, we remain in uncertain economic times, unquote, continued Harrington. Quote, therefore, we've determined that we need to take further steps to improve our cost structure so we can keep investing in the customer experience that attracts customers to Amazon and grows our business. Grows our business. Though the full extent and exact details of Amazon's cost-cutting plans have yet to be disclosed to the public, here's that one division was hit particularly hard by the news, Comixology. Retweeting Del Rey's sharing of Harrington's memo, the digital comic services now ex-program manager Scott McGovern quickly thereafter confirmed that, quote, there have been numerous cuts at Comixology this morning, myself included, unquote. After initially speculating that, quote, it looks like from the outside that at least 50% of the staff have been let go, unquote, McGovern would later clarify that the total was closer to 75%, quote unquote. Quote, the majority of the employees are gone, unquote, he explained. Quote, there's still employees working at Comixology. I have no information to share about what they're working on or the length of their tenure, unquote. Well, if he's been let go, of course he's not going to have any updated information. Or not a whole lot anyways, because he's now on the outside looking in. And you can only get so much in that type of positioning, right? Let's see if we have anybody saying anything yet. No, but we still have 3 people watching, so that's cool. Anyways, and again, if you can help out by liking and sharing this, see if we can get some more friendly people here, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment or ask questions. I will try to answer the question to the best of my ability. With that, however, while McGovern was not privy to the subsequent state of Comixology's inner workings, one employee who survived the cuts made it clear that he had little optimism towards the service's future. Taking to his personal Facebook in the aftermath of the bloodbath, Comixology technical account manager Mike Eisenberg lamented, quote, it turns out that I'm one of the lucky handful left to fill out a skeleton crew. Keeping the lights on for a little while longer, but it cannot be understated just what has been lost today, unquote. Quote, and even I've got a ticking clock on my employment, unquote, he bleakly added. Quote, those of us remaining will do the best we can, but I would not be surprised if digital comics on Kindle revert back to being sort of a disaster as it was before the Amazon acquired CMX. However, many years ago, unquote. Quote, a lot of folks assumed CMX, which I'm guessing Comixology, had been dissolved when the legacy app went away last year. But we've been here all along, doing our damnedest to improve the experience for customers, publishers, and creators, unquote, Eisenberg concluded. Quote, I don't know what that experience will look like in the near future, but it's going to be missing most of the people who knew anything about comics and actually gave a damn. So if you aren't optimistic, I don't blame you. I'm not either. Wow, what a dour perspective. Granted, sometimes that happens though. Sometimes, you just have to cut costs. Unfortunately, a lot of the rank and file get kind of are the ones that get knocked around and all that. You know. All right. So, anyways, how do we get back to this? Though Eisenberg ended his post with the disclaimer that he, quote, might be slightly drunk at the moment, unquote, and noted that there was a, quote, good chance I remove this after I sober up, unquote. His post currently remains live on both his Facebook and Twitter accounts. Despite the confusion and despair amongst both its staff and customers, both Amazon and Comixology have yet to offer any statement on the service's operational future. What I'm probably thinking is maybe Amazon's probably trying to wait it out a bit and see what happens. See, if see with what they do now, if that helps things before really saying anything more about it. So that's what I'm guessing. But anyways, but anyways, so now we're gonna get ready to move on to the next topic. Oh, Justin Roiland, that's the guy. That's the guy's name. Justin. I knew it was a J. I had a feeling it was J.R., but the initials were J.R. I just couldn't remember what the guy's name was. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this one then, because this one's and I know over the last, I guess at least couple of days, I've been hearing more and more about this. I think Yellow Flash has covered it. Vera Dark, Comic Crow, and even Tug actually hit on it a little bit earlier today in one of his videos. So, in a rare non-Amber Heard video, Tug talked about something other than Amber Heard. So, anyways, Adult Swim parts ways with Justin Roiland following domestic abuse charges. Confirms Rick and Morty will continue in his absence. So, article by Spencer McCulley published earlier today. Now, just as a bit of a reminder for everybody, he's been charged. He hasn't actually been convicted yet, and yet they still decided to let him go. He hasn't actually been committed. And then in the process, they just decided to hold on to. But considering that the guy is the creator, the creative genius behind the show, and basically also, I think almost all of the voices from everything I've been hearing, there's been a lot of calls that maybe the show, if he's no longer a part of it, maybe they should just go ahead and just cancel the show. I mean, how are they going to recast all those characters that he voiced? I mean, plus to actually bring in and hire on a whole bunch of new people to continue the show, that's gonna also raise the cost of production up a bit, and it may be that people behind it, Warner Brothers and all that, may not be too kind on the idea. But anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at this article. Um, Okay. Actually, before I even do that, I'm gonna have to go away from the computer for a moment. I'll be right back. I'll put some music on while I'm gone for you guys. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So we get back to this thing. All right. Okay, so in light of the recent revelation that the Rick and Morty creator has been charged with felony domestic abuse, Adult Swim has announced that it will no longer be working with Justin Roiland. Now, again, he's been charged. He hasn't actually been convicted, you know. So, but then I guess he's now apparently been convicted in the court of public opinion. I guess, you because apparently there's been no evidence presented yet as to what he actually did. Charges only are that the accused of um, felony assault on a spouse or a cohabitant and false imprisonment, I believe. So, anyways, as first reported by NBC News, following his January 12th appearance at a pretrial hearing, Royland is facing quote, one felony count of domestic battery with corporal injury, that's what it was, and one felony count of false imprisonment by menace, violence, fraud, and or deceit, stemming from an incident which is said to have taken place 3 years ago in Orange County, California. Right. Though public details regarding the case are scarce, thanks to a protective order issued by the court, a criminal complaint filed against the creator by the Orange County District Attorney and later obtained by NBC News reveals that Royland is accused of having assaulted a currently unidentified ex girlfriend sometime around January 19th, 1920. So about 3 years ago. Okay. Initially charged in May of that year, Roiland was subsequently arrested and quickly released on $50,000 bail in August. This guy is the creative force behind the show. By the way, he's one of the he was one of the co-creators, as well as basically just about the voice of almost of a great deal, a majority of the characters, I believe. Um, from there, Roiland was arraigned in October, at which time he submitted a plea of not guilty. In a statement provided to NBC News following their initial report, Roiland's attorney, T. Edward Wellborn, declared, quote, "We look forward to clearing Justin's name and helping him move forward as swiftly as possible," unquote. Now, again, he has not been convicted yet. He's not been convicted, if he gets convicted at all. If they do find him not guilty, he could have a, he could have a legit suit against Adult Swim, Warner Brothers, and whoever else is involved in for wrongful termination. And of course, I know people have speculated that the reason they did this is because they just want to wash their hands, because they figure if they just look like they're doing something, then they won't get caught up in the potential blood splatter of the negative press. But I don't think that's going to turn out too well for him. Anyways, at the time of his arraignment, the court also approved a protective order request separate from the aforementioned one surrounding the case details from a presently unknown individual, which requires Roiland to, quote, not to harass, threaten, or surveil the person named in the protective order, unquote. Quote, Roiland cannot go within 100 feet of the person, according to the order, which also ordered Roiland to turn in any firearms he owned or possessed, unquote, added NBC News. Quote, the order lasts until October 2023, which is, of course, later this year. Now, apparently, though, there is some other dark history, and maybe they'll touch upon it here, because I know that some of the other stuff that, like something like Vera and Crow and Flash talked about, I guess this guy's been involved in some other sketchy stuff too that might be playing into some of this too. But anyways, let's see what else is being written here. As of writing, an official trial date in the case has not yet been set. However, while the courts have been slow to act, Roiland's most prominent employer has not. Just 12 days after word of his domestic abuse charges became public, Adult Swim announced via its official Twitter account that they had, quote, ended brackets our association with Justin Roiland. So they didn't even wait for him to be convicted. They didn't first off, they didn't even wait for him to be now if now the thing is here, the problem is if he actually beats us, if they ultimately find him not guilty, he may have a suit for wrongful termination. Because the whole reason behind this was, because they believed him to be, they actually believed he did do this, even though he wasn't actually convicted of it. We don't know about any of the actual details aside from what we can infer from maybe the protective orders. But even that, remember, our justice system is designed to be innocent until proven guilty. And this guy, like Johnny Depp, like Dick, really didn't get Billy isn't getting that. As an American citizen, he has every right to that. Interestingly, the network then reassured fans that despite the loss of its co-creator and lead voice actor, quote, Rick and Morty will continue. Yeah, and I know that the joke that Crow had talked about, Comic Crow pointed out that they, in essence, fired Rick and Morty because Justin was there, among the many voices he did on the show, included the two lead characters, Rick and Morty. So, I mean, you know, I have a feeling this is something that's gonna. I have a feeling this is gonna something that's gonna end up biting them in the butt, and it's going in the show. Depending upon how the court case goes, this show may be on its last leg. You know, just based on everything you're hearing, because it's like you know they have to replace this one actor who did a good number of the voices on the show with a bunch of new actors, which of course is going to mean that they're going to have to, their production costs are definitely going to be going up because when you have the one guy who was doing what was it 75-80% of the voices, with maybe one or two other people coming in to do maybe specialty voices here and there to kind of you know but you know so you go from potentially two or three actors to now many more. Obviously they're not going to just come in to work for free. They're going to want to be paid. So you're going to that's going to be increase in payroll right there. So that's one aspect of production costs is going up. They may not be able to to run the show much after this debacle. So, anyways, quote, the talented and dedicated crew are hard at work on season 7, unquote. They added. They might be, again, they might, with what they have, they might be able to get away with season 7, but, you know, it's probably not going to go beyond that, you know, and then they, of course, again, Adult Swim, Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, Warner Media, whoever is all involved may have opened themselves up if he ends up being found not guilty, if he ends up beating the charge and ends up being found not guilty, you know, he could have a wrongful termination suit, looming on his hands, that he could basically, they sue them for wrongful termination. Um, Anyways, let's see. Shortly thereafter, the Royal founded Squanch Games followed. Squanch Games followed suit and announced that quote on January 16th, which is a week ago yesterday, or Monday rather. That was not this past Monday, but the week before. 2023, Squanch Games received Justin Roiland's resignation, unquote. Quote, the passion team at Squanch will keep developing games we know our fans will love, while continuing to support and improve High on Life, unquote, the studio concluded. And there we go with that one. So, yeah, again, it just goes back to the whole idea of, everybody should be, again, our legal system says innocent until proven guilty, but that doesn't necessarily always apply to doesn't always necessarily apply to court of public opinion, unfortunately. All right. Oh, let's see now. So we're making good time here. All right. So here we go. Here we go with the next article here. Interview Tokyo Underworld, in smaller quote, mangaka. For those who don't know, mangaka is a manga creator. Kenji Takaki brings American and Japanese horror together for the ultimate death survival game. Article by Nerdigans Inc. Published interview manga. So let's take a look at this. Contrary to popular belief in the West, there's more to the medium of anime and manga than just the typical action battle shonen, ecchi, and isekai series. One such series, Tokyo Underworld. Yeah, I mean there have been a few. I've seen a few good horror animes, out there. Uh, Ghost. Let's see. Well, there's of course Gregory Horror Show. There's let's see, what's another one? Another one I was just moving up to. Anyways, um, our favorite new title to begin serialization in 2022, Kenji Sakaki's Death Survival game series blew us away with both its fresh take on the horror genre and its eerie art. Um, so so much so much so that we reached out to the mangaka in the hopes that she would take the time to provide us with further insights into her creative process. Okay, graciously, Sakaki um, agreed to take time out of her busy schedule to exclusively speak with us about not only her difficult journey to Tokyo Underworld serialization, but also the inspirations behind its story and monstrous execution and design. Oh, cool! So not only a breakdown manga, but it's a lady doing this. You don't hear too many ladies doing horror. Maybe Agatha Christie and all that, but you don't really hear too many women doing horror stories. Let's go ahead and see what this is all about. From Nerigans Inc. Um, how difficult was the journey to get Tokyo Underworld serialized in Shueisha's Jump Plus? Kenji Shikaki. It was a long and difficult journey to get Tokyo Underworld serialized, and several works were sacrificed. But once I decided to depict a hell similar to Tokyo, it was quick. I am quick at drawing manga, so the serialization was decided right away. However, it was very difficult to start a weekly serialization with a child, so I decided to delay the start date of Tokyo Underworld's serialization, saved it and then started publishing it. She's with child. That yeah, that would even yeah, that would make things even more um, interesting, wouldn't it? Nerdigans Inc. How difficult is it to balance being a wife and mother while working the harsh schedule of a weekly serialization? And Sakaki replied, juggling a weekly series and childcare is very difficult. Fortunately, I am fast at drawing manuscripts and good at managing my schedule. I manage to keep my work viable. I like the weekly series and hope to keep it that way as long as I can. Again, Zinkman asked, is all of the incredible art seen in Tokyo Underworld manga hand drawn? And Sakaki replied, I do all my painting on the computer. Okay. I used to draw on paper, but I changed because a computer is easier. Um, what was the and then Nerdigans Inc. asked, what was the inspiration for Tokyo Underworld? Sakaki replied, I wanted to depict hell. Okay. The Japanese idea of hell is a place where people who have committed sins go and are punished by the demons that live there. In Tokyo Underworld, I wanted to depict the escape from hell in an entertaining manga style. Hmm. Sounds very interesting. It sounds like an anime that, if it does become an anime, it sounds like an anime that might be very interesting to watch. Tokyo Ghoul, there's another one crosses my mind. Uh, Tokyo Ghoul. Let's see. Ghost Stories. That was the one I was thinking of earlier. Ghost Stories. Why did you ultimately decide to use an urban setting for Tokyo Underworld? Takaki replied, that was a question by Nerd Again Zinc. Takaki replied, the reason for setting in it in a city is I wanted to depict one strange town. I like to make stories in a limited space. In parentheses here, I like Lost, Prison Break, Saw, etc. in parentheses. So this time I decided to make a tour of famous places in Tokyo where terrible things happen. So she took some local legends and decided to depict them in her story. That sounds a bit interesting. That right there. Witch Hunter Robin's another one. Maybe not horror, but definitely fighting demons. Nerdigans Inc. are the execution sites depicted in Tokyo Underworld based on actual locations. Sakaki replied, they are conceived by incorporating an actual location in Tokyo. The Rainbow Bridge in Daiba is an actual bridge. The market in Toyosu is also real. And Ginza is famous for its department stores. And I do know that because I've heard about Ginza a few times in a number of different animes. It's they do bring it in a lot. In old Tokyo, there were several execution sites throughout the city. Let's see, Suzugamori Penitentiary, etc. That's what I imagined. And now look at that! Look at that saying right. Look at that line right there. The Rainbow Bridge is dyed blood red as the crimson flower of slaughter blossoms. Oh boy, that's some writing right there. Compared to some stuff here in the West, right? Hmm. Nerdigan's Inc. then asked another concept of Tokyo Underworld that we really found interesting were um, were guiltograms and how even self guilt contributes to the weight of one's guilt. What was the thought behind that? Then Sakaki replied, a guiltgram is a unit of weight for grudges. It is weighed according to the intensity of the grudge directed at you or others. The stronger the guilt, the more the person directs the grudge toward himself. This is a point I like to make here. Ah, that's interesting. As the as the interview continues here, of course, Nerdigan's Inc. And an aspect we really love about Tokyo Underworld is the concept of the executioners being based off of real life historical figures. What was your inspiration for their designs? And Izukaki replied, for the executioners, I wanted to use a motif of an enemy that readers could easily visualize and understand. So I chose a great historical figure with an eerie, surrealistic style. Also, because I love history. Hmm. Week will be hunted down, according to that little sketch up there. Let's see. Nerdigan's Inc. then asked, the designs for the executioners seen in Tokyo Underworld thus far are the most creative and creepy interpretations of historical figures we've seen depicted in historical based fiction. What was the creative process behind them, and who is your favorite? Then Zakaki replied, I like Benkei's design best. I made him a familiar historical figure in Japan, since Benkei is the first executioner to appear in Tokyo Underworld. I decided to go with a character who does not talk much to emphasize his eeriness. I would say, like, kind of the idea that silence is golden. Some people would argue that silence is golden, but it can also be very deadly. Remember, ninjas live by a code of silence, right? You really think about it. And then I guess, like Sakaki continued here. For Columbus, I chose to give him an ugly design to leave a strong impression of the Toyoshi guilty market dealers combined with the sea and evil deeds. Um, it is quite difficult to draw the barnacles on his back. Um, so I guess her what she wanted to do was have Columbus almost what was it, piracy and like the mercantile life of the sea and all that. It sounds like what she intended for Columbus to be interpreted as. Fast, the time has come to determine the weight of your guilt. And then she continues on here. The executioner Antoinette is the queen of love and eating, predation. She is a fun character to draw. However, it was difficult to draw the tentacles, for which I used an octopus in various movie space life forms as reference. So Antoinette, if y'all remember, Queen of Love and Eating Kardashian. So if you guys remember when they went to behead Queen Marie Antoinette of France, it was over something she said like "let them eat cake," right? Um, so I mean, yeah, ah, interesting interpretations here. Yeah, another interesting kind of horrific historical manga that I can think of is Le Chevalier d'Eon. That one was pretty good. I want to go check that one out. You know, they depicted the life of a real life French spy by the name of uh, uh, Leon de Beaumont, who was a real life historical figure. He apparently suffered from a condition in which he did not completely go through puberty and therefore presented as a woman. Now, in the anime, of course, and I guess the manga as well, they kind of took some supernatural liberties with the story. But it's still a pretty interesting story, nonetheless. But anyways, Nerdigans Inc. then asked, what can readers expect from Tokyo Underworld in 2023? And Sakaki replied, this year the readers can look forward to several major battles against the executioners, with the recent events revealed at the end of 2022. Yomi, Yami, and the gang will feel an increased sense of urgency and speed in their search for a way out of the Togena. Now, the terms Yomi and Yami and Jami. Yomi is, I believe, the word for demon, or one of the words for demon. Yami is the Japanese word for what we would call dark. So um, that's a very interesting little heads up for you guys there. Oh yeah, okay. And there's the end of that interview. Okay, it's a pretty interesting interview. Anyways, I mean, and I think did we hit all four? Did we hit four of the five stories there? Makes sense. Oh yeah, that was the last one we were gonna read there. So we got one more story, and then we'll start to kind of wind things down a bit here. We're just past the hour mark, so we're actually making good time on that. That's good to see. All right, now this is one that I really, and I kind of touched upon this last week. And we may have some other updated information I'll go over in the wrestling wrap up as well. But I'm going to go ahead here and focus focus on this article right here. Okay, so and to give you guys a little background on this story before we get started, Jay Briscoe, whose real name was Jamin Hugh, the pro wrestler. He and his brother Mark were pro wrestlers, or he was a pro wrestler who was originally from Delaware. Was real pop. He and his brother were a popular tag team on the East Coast Independent. Of course, being a record holding 13-time Ring of Honor tag team champion, as well as being an Impact World Champion one time. For some of you NWA fans, you might remember last year he and his brother won the Crockett Cup last year, and they won a lot of a lot of they won a lot of tag team titles. But last Tuesday, the 17th, Jay had passed away from injuries he sustained in a car accident in which his two daughters were with him. Um, they were both hospitalized, and I think they're both still recovering as well. But he passed away. Um, as I talked a little bit about last week, AEW wanted to do more of a tribute to him last week than they were able to do, but Warner Media, and I'm going to get into that here. But apparently, some of the executives at Warner Media did not, did not let them. You did see during the night, of course, saw many guys wearing the armbands of with the name J on them, black armband with the name J. Um, I believe the Young Bucks utilized a move known to many fans as the Doomsday Advice, a move that the Briscoes had used, as well as the originators of the move, the Hawk, late Hawk and Animal, the Road Warriors, who were the ones that did that electric chair clothesline combination. So, anyways, get into this article. I give you guys a bit of the background here. Warner Media is reportedly preventing All Elite Wrestling from honoring Jay Briscoe after his tragic death. Now, I don't know. I did. Now, I watched something. I watched the AEW Control Center, and I'll have a little bit of update on that after we go through this article. So, article by Jacob Smith published earlier today. So, after a tragic week in the world of professional wrestling, it seems like executives at Warner Media have an axe to grind against a certain pair of wrestlers, even in death. Now, to give you a little bit background on this, a little bit more background on this, just so you understand too. So, as many of you know, it was about probably a little over a year ago. It was probably late 2021, I believe, in which Tony Khan had bought Ring of Honor. And toward the end of the year, the 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 tag team that was the Ring of at least at some point in the year, the Briscoe brothers were the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions at that point in 2021. And of course, after Tony Khan bought up Ring of Honor, he wanted, of course, as many of you know, he started bringing in many of their talent to do do dark elevation, and even some of the dynamite and Rampage show. The, the team missing from that was the Briscoe brothers. Now, a lot of the Ring of Honor talent got, of course, signed, or got a chance to work, but the Briscoe brothers were kept off of TV. Apparently, some of the executives at Warner Media did not care for these two. It stems from some comments that Jay had made back in 2012 that he apparently had since apologized for, mind you. And but they just did not want them. And I have my own theories as to why that is. I'll go into that again after we go through the article here. But basically, yeah, the executives had been, this isn't the only time the executives said, no, we don't want the Briscoes on our program. They've been keeping them off the programming. I think that's part of the reason why FTR even got their Ring of Honor titles, was because they needed to get them off because, aside from the fact that the Briscoes were doing other promotions anyways. Anyways, so so here we go. Let's continue with the article here. On Tuesday, last Tuesday, uh, Damon Pugh, known to the wrestling community as Jay Briscoe of the popular tag team the Briscoe Brothers, was tragically so that was 1 week yesterday, killed in a car wreck while driving his two daughters to cheerleading practice. Pugh was 38 years old, so that's what it was. Okay, I was kind of wondering what that was. Jay, along with his brother Mark, were a renounced tag team for over 2 decades. Okay, I think they mean renowned. Renounced would probably be what Warner Media was actually doing to them, trying to renounce them. But I think they mean here renowned. For over 2 decades, for their over-the-top wrestling style and redneck personas. Okay, well, maybe renounced is also kind of. The duo were 13-time Ring of Honor tag team champions and were the active champs before his death. Mhm. The Delaware State Police issued a statement um, on January 18th regarding the car accident that took the life of Jay Briscoe, the driver of took the life of Jay Briscoe and the driver of the other vehicle. It begins, quote, the Delaware State Police are investigating a fatal accident that occurred in Laurel late yesterday afternoon. It resulted in the deaths of two people on January 17, 2023 at approximately 5:09 p.m. Eastern, that's what I gather. A 2019 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 was traveling westbound on Laurel Road, just west of Goose Nest Road. At the same time, a 2016 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 was traveling eastbound on Laurel Road in the same vicinity. Unquote. Quote, for unknown reason, the driver of the Silverado 1500 pickup truck failed to remain in her lane, crossed the center line, and entered the eastbound lane of Laurel Road, directly into the path of the Silverado 2500. Um, so I guess the um, I guess Jay was the one driving the newer car of the two, or the newer vehicle of the two. Path of the Silverado 2500. This resulted in a head-on collision between the two pickup trucks in the eastbound lane. Unquote. The statement said. Quote. The driver of the Silverado 1500, identified as a 27-year-old Lillian uh, Turnahan of Frankfort, Delaware, was wearing a seatbelt. The driver of the Silverado 2500, identified as 38-year-old Raymond Pugh of Laurel, Delaware, was not wearing his seatbelt. Unquote. The Delaware State Police reported. Hmm. Just well, goes to show you. Well, in that particular case, though, you know, even though she was wearing the seatbelt, she still ended up dying. But it's always better to wear your seatbelt, for safety's sake. Quote: both drivers were pronounced dead at the scene. Unquote. It noted, quote, the two passengers in Pugh's pickup truck, identified as his 12-year-old daughter and 9-year-old daughter, were both properly restrained. Both girls were taken by ambulance to an area hospital and were admitted in critical condition. Now that's also kind of a sad thing, if you think about it. And that's why our prayers and condolences should go out to his family, particularly his daughters. Think about that for a moment. They're involved in a pretty horrific tragedy right there, in a head-on collision. 12 and 9, they're themselves suffered some pretty serious injuries from what I understand. And then if they have woken up already, at some point they're gonna find out. If they haven't already, they're gonna find out their dad's dead. That's kind of a sad thing. Um, that's just one of those things. Um, well, that's kind of the human aspect of it. Is that these girls seriously hurting the and they're gonna find out that their dad's dead. My family's gonna need a lot of support in the coming weeks and months here. So I would hope that for those who are in the community of Laurel, Delaware, that you reach out to them and just share your love and share your prayers and show them your support. All right. The statement concluded, quote, alcohol involvement in the crash is unknown. No other vehicles were involved in the collision. The roadway was closed for approximately 4 hours while the scene was investigated and cleared. Unquote. Again, and we're not going to speculate here if there was any. I mean, we don't know why the girl who was driving the pickup truck, the older pickup truck, veered into his lane. We don't know what happened there, so it's not good to speculate on such matters. Um, Delaware State Police also encouraged anyone who might have witnessed the accident to contact Sergeant Jay Burns at 302-703-3269 or provide information to Delaware Crime Stoppers 1-800-847-3333 or by messaging the Delaware State Police via private Facebook message. Now that we got the details of the accident out of the way, let's focusing on the wrestling side of it here. The pro wrestling community was shocked to learn of the death of the beloved member of the wrestling business. However, internal conflict with the executives at Warner Media TDS prevented one company from honoring the fallen wrestler in death. Yeah, and I'll be quite honest with you. I first heard about this probably early Wednesday morning. Didn't necessarily hear about it, but as I was still on and I was looking over some YouTube stuff, I saw I guess a video that was I didn't like watch the video, but I saw kind of like the 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 notification there. Jay Briscoe, Jamin Pugh, 1984, 2023. I'm going, what? Say what? And then I looked into it and found out what happened. But anyways, let's get into this part here. Tony Khan, who owns both AW All Elite Wrestling and ROH or Ring of Honor, where the Briscoes wrestled, was not allowed to dedicate the January 18th episode of AEW Dynamite to Briscoe, which of course that was last Wednesday's episode, and had to air a celebration of life to Jay after the show went off the air. According to Wrestling Observer Radio's Dave Meltzer, Warner Media didn't allow AEW to hold a tribute show for Jay Briscoe. Um, and after I read this, I'll give some of my commentary on this too as to why I think this all was going down. Quote, there was a graphic at the start of the show, and then at the very end of the show, there was a mention by Excalibur. A lot of the guys had armbands, a lot of them. But there was not any kind of big tribute because they were not allowed by Warner Media to do one, unquote, Meltzer said. Now, this is, of course, something I had hoped. This aspect of the story was actually pretty well known. I was kind of hoping to ask James Lee about it on Weekend Edition last Sunday, but he was not available that Sunday, so I'll ask. Hopefully, he'll be with us this Sunday, and I'll be able to ask him then. And this is one of the things I want to ask him about in regards to that. Anyways, last year it was reported that Warner Media executives barred Tony Khan from signing the Briscoes to AEW, essentially banning them from appearing on the TBS show, which is what I was talking about earlier. That's what I was talking about earlier. According to a source with Fightful Wrestling, executives were upset by a 2013 tweet posted by Jay Briscoe in response to the state of Delaware legalizing gay marriage, essentially blacklisting them from the company. Uh, Briscoe wrote at the time, quote, "If that makes you happy, then congratulations. Try and teach my kids that there's nothing wrong with that, and I'll bleeping shoot." Um, yeah. Maybe not the most eloquent way to say it, but I get his point as a parent. Having somebody else try to tell you how to raise your kid, it's not going to go over well with anybody. Okay, but some of this goes even deeper. I think some of this goes even deeper than that comment. That comment was just a manifestation of what I think is deeper in that, and I'll talk about that after we're done with the thing here. Jay apologized for the remarks, stating they weren't his real life views and that he was only playing up his redneck character on television. Okay. Um, Despite repeatedly showing remorse for his words, the Riscos were blacklisted for his comments as major companies such as the WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, refused to sign them, afraid of backlash from the LGBTQ community among their fans and sponsors. Even in death, Warner Media appears to continue to blacklist any mention of the Briscoes on their programming, despite wrestlers on the show wanting to pay tribute to their fallen friend. hmm And at, at least they were able to do some things there because they had to mention it. They had the graphic at the beginning, as they mentioned. Excalibur mentioned something at the very end. You had many of the guys, wearing the armband, you know, and even the Young Bucks, paid tribute to them utilizing their finishing move. Um, but the donation page was set up by Briscoe's family friend, um, Briscoe's family friend for fans to offer. Okay, I think unless they name the family friend, I guess it should be by a Briscoe family friend for fans to offer their help for the few families. The Give Send Go page note, quote, on the evening of January 17th, our community and friends across the world were left in shock after the news of the passing of Jamin, a man who made everyone around him a better person. The few families' world has shifted, and with that, there will be many unforeseen expenses. We have set this page up with approval from the family to help ease any burden that may arise from this tragedy. It's been heartwarming, quote, it's been heartwarming to read all the stories of those who interacted with Jamin, and his impact was felt across the world. Please continue to pray for the Pew family and all of their children. This is the only campaign that has been approved by the family. Unquote, is concluded. And there's Jay holding the Ring of Honor pin, I believe. What are your thoughts on Warner Media refusing to let AEW? Um, well, I'm about to give those thoughts. I'm about to give those thoughts. Yeah, um, I think that in of itself is pretty messed up. Okay, I would use a stronger word. I think many of you know the word I'm probably thinking of. It rhymes with sit and hit, and I'm pretty sure you can figure out. It rhymes with kitty, rhymes with sit and hit. So you can pretty much figure out what the word is. But yeah, my view on this is this: the issue with them being blacklisted goes even deeper than just that one comment. I think it goes towards their character. Okay, it goes towards so even as Jay acknowledged, he's playing up his redneck character. Well, to a lot of these corporate people, okay, there's kind of a schism that's going on, and not that I really try to get too much into identity politics too much here. Um, but not that I really try to get too much into identity politics, but but here's kind of like here's kind of my take on on that. So let's get this off the screen there. We're done with the article. Um, what the two brothers, what the Briscoes represent? They represent the characterization that the left hates. Okay, a lot of these left-leaning social media giants, like Warner Media, like CNN, the Briscoes represent something they will never say they hate them, but the way they get talked about, people like the Briscoes, like the Robertsons of that dynasty. Like even former President Barack Obama, you know, tried to turn, tried to use, tried to make a pejorative out of them by saying, "Oh, you have these people who cling to their God and their gun." Right? It's that character that they hate because it is a major threat to their power. It is a lot of these corporations, yeah, some of them may be very fiscally conservative, but socially they're very liberal. And of course, they didn't want the Briscoes on their platform, on their television stations, because um, because the Briscoes represent the antithesis of what they believe in. You know, Jamin and Mark Pugh are from a rural part of Delaware, which up until the last few days, I didn't even realize there were rural parts of Delaware. Quite honestly, of course, I've never been to Delaware, so I wouldn't know. Not from that area. Closest Delaware I've been to, of course, is Maryland because I have relatives in in like in around the Baltimore area. But But the Qs, Jamin and Mark Q, represent something that a lot of these corporate people at Warner Media, these executives, they represent something they hate because they look at it as a threat to their power. You know, now, I don't know if it was as much he was just playing up the character, or if on some level he honestly believes what he said. Maybe because we live in a civil society, he may not actually go out. He may not have gone out and actually shot him. But again, I don't know Jaden Hughes, so I can't really say too much. I've never met the guy. I've watched some of his matches. I've seen some of his work as a wrestler, and I can see why a lot of people hold him in high regard as a wrestler. He and his brother, they are a very well accomplished tag team, and a lot of brother teams throughout the years have been well accomplished tag teams. Okay, so you know, even when it's been a case of storyline brothers like the Andersons, you know, um, but you know, apparently the thing is that he made those and because he made those comments, basically most of the major companies, well, at least they talk about the WWE and the WWE and AEW. Those are the two main companies that basically blacklisted. Didn't stop Impact from working with him. Didn't apparently stop the NWA from working with him. Now, granted, those two are not on the same level in terms of exposure as like WWE and AEW, but they're still considered national organizations. I think they probably even did work over in New Japan too. You know, so you know, but I do have a little bit of an update on that too. As I said, I was watching the AEW Control Center with Tony Schiavone earlier today, and apparently, at least it does look like there is going to be now. Maybe some of the backlash in Warner Media. Maybe some people. I don't know what's going on because, but even though we had heard up to this point that Warner Media was barring them from mentioning the Briscoes on TV or even hiring them, apparently during tonight's um, Dynamite show, they have decided to allow a Jay Briscoe tribute match, which his brother Mark will be wrestling Jay Lethal, and the two and now from what I also understand, these two actually went to Tony Khan and said, "Hey, we want this. We want to do this." You know, and they somehow apparently got approved because I think it did cause some other changes because another match that was supposed to be happening got switched around too. Initially, there was going to be a triple threat match between Tony Storm, Ruby Soho, and Britt Baker, but apparently Britt Baker was taken out of that match for some reason. Don't know why, but um, in that, we might as well make that an interesting segue into the wrestling wrap up and talk about some of the other stuff going on, particularly tonight on Dynamite. As on Dynamite tonight as well, Bryan Danielson continues his quest to remain undefeated until February 8th to earn, to basically hold on to, to gain the number one contender shot, hold on to his chance at MJF in a 60-minute Iron Man match coming up at Revolution. Also, in a tag team match, team calling themselves La Sex Gods. Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara are taking on Action Andretti and Absolute Ricky Starks as that feud is continuing to rage forward. Darby Allin will be defending the TNT title in a open challenge match against Buddy Matthews of House of Black to settle some old scores there. Um, at least all I can remember. And there's also going to be a segment in which Billy Gunn has called for a family therapy session between his sons, the Gun Club, and his current proteges, the Acclaimed. That's going to be an interesting watch as well. So, so I will hopefully have a lot of that information for you tomorrow. Let's see. More information. I think basically this weekend is WWE is the Royal Rumble event. We did mention that some like initially last night they were going to have a cage. Initially on Monday they were going to have on Raw they were going to have a cage match between Bayley and Becky Lynch in a cage. That it didn't totally get straight. They still had a segment, but it was not a match because the segment, the Bloodline segment, ran long. Initially, now this was the Sami Zayn trial. But that ran long, so that thing got Kim. Now some people who were advertised to be there or thought would be there didn't show up. Bella Twins and Mick Foley had been previously in. But one of the other big stories coming out of all that too is the apparent passing of the torch by the Undertaker to Bray Wyatt. As there was a moment after the confrontation between Bray Wyatt and Intercontinental Champion, well, no, not Intercontinental, LA Knight, where Undertaker was going to choke him, but then threw him into Bray for him to hit him with the Sister Abigail. And then after that, went over to Bray and was whispering, looked like he was whispering something in his ear, and they were talking. So it seemed like Undertaker may have been passing the torch to Bray. And from what we've been hearing the last few days, Undertaker is a big fan of Bray's work and is somebody who's pushing for WWE to keep him and really use him. As if some of you remember, he was let go in 2021 in the Vince McMahon reign, only to be brought back by Triple H um, last year. Now things are again up in the air as how much control the man has since returning. So, anyways, we are going a little longer than I intended, but that's okay. The Briscoe story is something that needed to be reported on. Anyway, I hope you guys will keep Briscoes in your thoughts and prayers. Show the family as much support as possible. So with that, then, why don't we go ahead and start to wrap up here? We'll do this day in each history. History. Oh, one last before I get into the history part here. One last piece of commentary on the whole Jay Briscoe thing. I believe that the reason that it's possible. I haven't heard anything yet. Maybe I'll hear something tomorrow, and then I'll be able to confirm this tomorrow. But I would think that probably what happened is there were some fans who started really going after Warner Media online. Maybe enough fans kind of complained to Warner, "Hey, why aren't you letting them pay tribute to this guy?" And maybe they got enough of a backlash where they just go, okay, you guys do something, you know. But hey, Rick, I'm just about to wrap up, but I still got history to do, and I've just been talking a lot for the last few minutes about the situation with the Briscoe brothers and Warner Media and all that. But from Jay's passing from last week. But if you can, of course, like and share this week, hopefully you'll watch and you'll even and thank you for the like and the share. Um, but anyways, so why don't we start to wrap this up a bit then? So today is Wednesday, January 25th, 2023. So let's take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. Yay! Alrighty then. So, having further ado then. First up, on this day in Nietzsche history, um, uh, going back to 1953, 70 years ago today. On this date, 70 years ago today, the 10th issue of Battlefield from Marvel, which at the time was called Animate Comics Incorporated, went on sale on this date back in 1953, 70 years ago today. Battlefield, as I understand it, was a kind of a war anthology, military anthology. So, War Tales from the Front Line, Battlefield. So, and there are a number of these type of books throughout comics in the 40s and 50s, and even into the 60s. This one only lasts, I think this was the penultimate issue, as I understand it, because it only ran 11 issues. But, anyways, on this date, 70 years ago today, the 10th issue of Battlefield from from Animate Comics went on sale on this date back in 1953. So as we prepare to move on to the next piece of Nietzsche history, let's see now. On this date in 1963, 60 years ago today, um, was a pretty historical aspect. As on this date back in 1963, 60 years ago today, the Flintstones episode "The Surprise" was first broadcast on this date back in 1963, in which Wilma Wilma announced to Fred that she was pregnant. This is the first time that an animated character is depicted as being pregnant. I'm guessing on television, mind you. So it's pretty historical in that sense. So, yeah. So on this date, 60 years ago today, the Flintstones episode "The Surprise" was first broadcast, in which Wilma announces to Fred that she is pregnant, and it's the first time that an animated character is being depicted as being pregnant on TV. I would imagine, maybe anywhere, but anyways, moving on to the next piece in each history, going back 30 years ago today, back to 1993. Tatsunoko's The Irresponsible Captain Tyler premiered on this date back in 1993. This is a cool anime. I watched it myself. I've seen it myself a few times. I think it was even on some of the broadcasts here in the States. But on this date back in 1993 was the premiere of Tatsunoko Productions' The Irresponsible Captain Tyler. It's kind of a space opera type of show. It's pretty funny in some respects. Of course, the English dub was done by Central Park Media in New York. Kristen Freeman, who is a pretty well-known voice actor, was voiced Captain Tyler. You also had Rachel Lillis, Michael Alston Bailey, um, among others. Lisa Ortiz were all involved, and Carol, a lot of them were involved in the show. Um, so 30 years ago today, the Irresponsible Captain Tyler premiered in Japan. And finally, going back 15 years ago today, after 2008, Ring of Honor, one of the companies we were talking about earlier, held its breakout event from the Montgomery County Fairgrounds in Dayton, Ohio, on this date 15 years ago today. So on this date 15 years ago today, Ring of Honor held its breakout event from the Montgomery Fairgrounds in Dayton, Ohio. The main event saw Nigel McGuinness defeat Chris Hero in a steel cage match to retain the Ring of Honor World Championship. Also on the card, Bryan Danielson defeated Tyler Black. Many of you might know Tyler Black as Seth Rollins right now. The No Remorse core of Roderick Strong and Davey Richards defeated the Age of the Fall, Jimmy Jacobs, and Joey Matthews. Let's see. In an FIP World Heavyweight Championship match, Austin Aries defeated Davey Richards. So Davey Richards did double duty that night, it looks like, to retain the FIP championship. Claudio Castagnoli defeated Adam Pearce. And the aforementioned Briscoe brothers defeated Jigsaw and Matt Cross in a match as well that night. On this date, 15 years ago today, the breakout event from Ring of Honor was held in Dayton, Ohio. Thank everybody for being here tonight. Hope you all enjoyed the show. Rick Piper, who was just here to say hi, he will be my co-host this week, and he looks back to August of 1939. We will be looking at comics that went on sale August of 1939 from from um, from Centaur Comics and David McKay publications. So I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow and Friday and every night, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.